all together.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we start, I would like to read the rules and regulations that need to be complied during the whole event. The time allotted for the presentation session is only 15 minutes. The time allotted for the question and answer session is 5 minutes only, and starts when the presenter starts responding. The panel can only start asking questions when the presentation session has ended. The bell will be rung once in the 10th minute of the presentation and twice in the 15th minute of the presentation, marking the end, and the question and answer session will begin. Questions from the panel of assessors should take precedence over other panels. Now let's start the ceremony with the first presenter, Tanya Mersali from TESOL 3 to present presentation. Please welcome.
A very good morning, I bid to my respected panels and my fellow friends. As for today, I am Tanya Mersali from TESOL 3 who would like to present my thesis entitled Using Powering Virtual Storybook to Improve Reading Comprehension Among Year 6 Pupils in SCA Product. First of all, I will explain about the background of the study. This research is about the integration of technology were implemented in this intervention. This is because children with reading comprehension difficulties will get benefit from explicit learning and modeling of text comprehension strategies which allow them to learn about factual information by using technology. Okay, so the purpose of this research is to discover the efficacy of virtual storybook to improve students' engagement on reading comprehension. Next, okay, so here are the statement of problem. The researcher is intended to study on why the student had the insufficiency of understanding reading skills and look at lack of interest in reading English books. Okay, so here are the purpose of the studies, which is first is to discover the gap, okay, among the students about reading comprehension between different levels of students, okay, and next is to in order to know how to engage the students by using reading comprehension virtual storybook to improve reading comprehension. Lastly, to maximize the students' positive attitude and to boost their confidence in reading comprehension. Okay, so next, the research objective is to examine whether students are able to comprehend the meaning of the text that they read. And second, investigate if the students are able to improve their reading comprehension using the virtual storybook during reading session that have been conducted in the classroom. And last one is research the response of implementation through powering virtual storybook to learn English. Okay, and my research question also, I have three research questions, which is how can virtual storybook help to improve students' reading comprehension in learning English as their second language? And second one, how is the use of Power virtual storybook can encourage the student to read? And what are the students' response to the implementation of the Power virtual storybook? Okay, so the significance of the research is first is to help teacher to handle students with different levels of reading comprehension. Second, students' motivation can be implemented or uplifted when the materials content is interesting. And the third one is virtual storybook can also help students to direct their own learning, which is student-centered. Okay, next. Next, we're moving forward to related past researcher. I have two past researcher, which is one local research and another one is abroad research. As for the local research, can be seen Lee and January 2018. Their title of their research is the strategy which was by using ebook to help and improve their reading comprehension. Meanwhile, for the abroad research, okay, which is Peter 2010, his research title is Electronic Storybook can improve reading comprehension and can be beneficial for struggling readers. Okay, so these two are the related past researcher with my title with my research. Okay, next is research design. I'm doing action research based on Kenneth method and 1998 theory, where each cycle has four steps, which is plan, action, observe, and reflect. Okay, so as for I did my intervention for three cycles. So as for my second and third cycles, I just revised my plan, which is my intervention, in order to help the students and improve the intervention to help the students understand their reading comprehension better. Okay, so next is population and sample. So for population and sample, I have three. I chose three participants out of 40 population from year 6 Amana, and it is from Sekolah Kebangsaan Rendah. Okay, so this intervention is carried out online with the student as because my second practical we conducted it online, so this intervention also I conducted online with the students. Okay, next is instrument used for data collection and intervention. Here are the example of my virtual storybook. I combine Google Form and weak site apps, which I combine it to make this virtual storybook to make this intervention. Okay? This is the instruments used for data collection, which is the document analysis. Can be divided into two, which is pre-intervention test and post-intervention test. Okay? Okay, this is my post-intervention test and observation. And I also have semi-structured interview. So this is the form. Okay, and next. So next is the research procedures. Okay, as for my intervention, here are the four main procedures that I did with my student. So first of all, I'll introduce and demonstrate how to use Power Virtual Storybook. And second, each participant has three cycles, and three cycles in each cycles have three sessions. Okay, and next after that, the participant read the Power Virtual Storybook by themselves, okay, by using the intervention. And lastly, the participant answered the reading comprehension. Uh, the reading comprehension that has quiz uh, that has quiz related to the text. So next is the data collection procedure. First, I'll start with pre and post intervention test, where I will give the student pre-intervention test worksheet. Okay, before I carry out the intervention, and after that, after I carry out the intervention, again I will give the student the post-intervention test worksheet. Okay, meanwhile for the observation, I will observe the participants while they are using the Power Virtual Storybook. Okay, how they behave, how they act when they use the intervention. Okay, and lastly is semi-structured interview. I will use this interview at the end. No, I use this interview, semi-structured interview form at the end of my intervention when I already did everything with the student. So next, my data analysis procedures is the analysis, I collected Google Form from all the participants because the worksheet I did it in Google Form. Okay? So I collected it from all the participants after each session and recognizing students' understanding according to items. There are a few items that I do in the that I will show. Then observation. I observe participant behavior throughout the research process by filling the observation checklist, like I showed previously in the slide, based on the specific themes analyzed. Okay, and next, for my semi-structured interview, I transcribe and translating the video of interview according to the themes analyzed. So next, here are my data findings. As we can see, for participant 1, okay, before and after, okay, we can see that before test intervention, the participant 1 cannot develop their reading comprehension and they are not able to give their point of view. But after they use the intervention, the participant 1 able to fulfill all these items. So she managed to improve her reading comprehension. Next, as for participant 2, the only weakness that he had is he cannot develop reading comprehension. So after using the intervention, he able to fulfill all of these items. He able to improve his reading development through reading comprehension. So next, for participant 3, I can say that participant 3 showed most improvement, okay, because as we can see, before intervention, he did not manage to develop his reading comprehension, understand the purpose and the content of the text, and he also not able to give his own opinion. But after using the intervention, he able to improve all of this. Okay. So next is this one is for observation. Here are the things that I said. I observe the participant according to the physical attempt, eagerness, respond towards stimulus, making inferences, and engagement. So here are the cycle 1, 2, 3. Okay, and next. And here are the semi-structured interview. Also, I interview the students based on my theme that I already narrowed down, which is 3: interest, challenge, and attractiveness. As we can see, for interest and attractiveness, throughout the 3 cycles are very positive, and they think that the intervention is very interesting and attractive. But for challenges, okay, we can see participant 1 and 3, they're having a little bit of challenges. Next. So here are the example of my transcription. Next. Okay, so my reflection, I can say that it can be determined that this study met the objective because the participants able to answer and show good understanding regarding the reading comprehension quiz improved significantly. And the student also increase this virtual storybook also increase our students' ability to understand the reading comprehension skill through its visual imagery, animation of the video, and interactive learning approach, which has helpful to address the first research question. Okay, and next, the students are able to respond consistently by showing good and improved behavior towards intervention. Next, so these are the 2 recommendations that I think can be made for my research, which is can be applied to other of the language subject. Maybe it's not necessarily for English, maybe can be used for science, mathematics. Okay, so it is more universal. And second, recorded sound of voice can be incorporated into the interactive virtual storybook to assist students with their reading for the reading. Okay, because during my intervention, I give the recorded sound. I give the video animation, but I give towards the ending. So I think it is better for the maybe next researcher can input this from the start, so that it can guide the students to read. Okay. So next, my conclusion is the virtual storybook are effective in increasing the 6 Amanah students' academic performance and boosting their positive attitudes towards learning English. And before this, previously had they think that reading is boring, but by using this intervention, the reading can be engaging and stress-free. Thank you.
morning to everyone. Prepare for your presentation. Make sure that the person, your audience, can see clearly from the back. So if you are presenting the form, make sure that your form is more clear or your background editing. Because certain writing I cannot go through, cannot read. Okay, some are not all. Okay, and the second question, uh, can you you have a research about virtual storybook? Okay, virtual storybook. So, can you give me what is your the special one, your virtual storybook? Because you not mentioned what is the special. Like something that I use a normal book, why cannot improve?
Oh, okay. So the specialty of my virtual storybook is I combined first the it is not how to we didn't use it like you don't have to hold it. It can be used online. So the student can use it even outside of the classroom. The student don't have to wait for the teacher because it is created in Google Form. So teacher just give the link, and when the students want to read, want to study again the text, the story, because the story is based on their syllabus, right? So when they want to study again at home or anywhere, they can study the storybook. So that's why it can improve. So they don't have to bring the storybook, and the storybook did have video, animation, quizzes, games, okay, like mysterious games in the storybook, and that's why it is more. The feature is more interesting and attractive compared to the typical books that we have.
Okay, let's say you mentioned about the game. Actually, I think that when you are present, you still you must show to us how your visual storybook are running for your student so that we can understand what is your research purpose actually. So that is something like you can use the less but less like this example procedure like you say Kemis and Taka. Actually this is procedure. Actually you don't need to explain very detail because everyone know we are doing action research. This is the step. So sometimes we need to integrate your visual storybook. What is the uh, important? What is the special? Like the sound, maybe it's video, everything that is shown to us so that we can see this special. Because when you want to make a comparison, the research one, why the normal book cannot improve your reading comprehension? Why? Then you say, sorry, your suggestion is the sound, make the sound incorporated. That means not much different visual and normal book. So maybe your argument in future, maybe you need to present, you need to make us audience more confident that your research really go through. Then what it is can improve your student. Maybe like you say, just now is small. Maybe we can put inside our handphone, can bring anywhere, convenient. Can read while waiting the bus to go back to the house. Like example, that is more orang kata boleh percaya, bukan cakap saja. Sebab research ini saya tengok kebanyakan buat. Kenapa yang apa yang lama ni tak boleh pakai? Kenapa mesti pakai komputer baru boleh belajar? Hakikat now you see our pandemic now majority of the students said that GC is not useless. They prefer face to face. Why? When you do the research before, it's more convenient. Understand what I tell you? So this is the point that is need you to inform. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tanya, for the presentation. I've got received comment mentioned by Mr. Alonso. So I was just wondering, on the post and the pre-task question, they use the same question
I use the
Same question. So is there any potential that the student might just memorize the question instead?
same because memorize the questions.
Yeah, because they have the same, the same questions for in books. So is there a possibility that they might memorize the questions so that they can simply answer the question right away like that?
Oh no, because as I see my students, they at first they really I can see from the way they answer the question, they really understand the text instead of just memorize the questions.
I see. So do you use, I mean, like, because you say that these materials are from the textbook, do you use one with the story, the short story, one whole textbook? Is it one?
No, I did said it edited it like make it shorter.
It means that you have the same story but you shorten
Yeah,
that.
shorten it.
Okay, why so?
Sorry, why so? Because I think it is easier for them to understand according to their level compared to the text, like more lengthy.
Okay, so concentration very good. I like how you have your checklist and the three cycles that you have because I noticed that most of the studies that I had gone through yesterday, they only have like one, two cycles, so you need three, so it's very good.
Thank you.
Now please go to the next presenter, who will be guided into the future from the one to the next presentation. Oh, yeah, so this is everything you do.
A very pleasant day. I read to the panelists, Ms. Martin and also Mr. Alonso. And of course, my fellow trainees. I'm really excited about this meeting, and today I'll be presenting my research report, which is entitled Motivational Factors Affecting IPG Career Path, TESOL Teacher Trainees Willingness to Communicate, WTC in English in the Classroom. For your information, I'm under the supervision of Dr. Satya. So without further ado, let's start with the background of the study. So many second language L2 learners experience fear in speaking English. There are many major factors which could influence their motivation to speak in English. Lack of willingness to communicate, WTC in English, will lead to ineffective communication in the classroom. This is according to COSA Embedded 2014. So it is highly expected for English teacher trainees to be proficient in speaking skills in order to teach effectively in the future. Next. So here is the statement of problem. So as we know, communication skills is a speaking skill is a part of communication skill. Speaking skill is the most anxiety provoking skill out of all language skill. It has been observed for foreign L2 learners that their WTC in English are affected negatively by their general attitude towards the language. This could be happening due to the communication apprehension that they experience. Almost similar occurrence happened to Malaysian L2 learners, whereby they possess low WTC in English. Their motivation to communicate in the classroom is affected by their low English proficiency and also level of anxiety and fear of making mistakes. Then, as for pre-service teachers, it has been reported that they have low self-perceived competence. This means that they will only communicate if they believe they are proficient in English. So as we can see, there have been many research that's been conducted pertaining to WTC and L2 motivation.
However, there is a lack of research conducted specifically to investigate the effects of motivation on IPG teacher trainees, WTC, as well as the influence of gender on the same matter. Next, so the purpose of the study is to obtain an overview of communication skills among teacher trainees in the classroom, and also to observe L2 motivation among teacher trainees in the classroom. Next, so we have research objectives here. So number one is to find out the most dominant WTC in English factor among IPG KDRI TESOL teacher trainees in the classroom. Then the study is conducted to identify the difference in motivation between female and male teacher trainees, teacher trainees WTC in the classroom. Right, so we have research questions for RQ1, research question 1. What is the most dominant WTC in English factor among IPG, KDRI, TESOL trainees? And as for RQ2, is there any difference in motivation between female and male IPG, KDRI, TESOL teacher trainees, WTC in English? From RQ2 just now, I've established research hypothesis. Which is there is no difference in motivation between female and male IPG, KDRI, TESOL teacher trainees, WTC in English in the classroom. Next, so here is the research significance. Well, this study could lead to the betterment of the curriculum by the policymakers, as well as it could broaden the understanding on communication activities and also L2 learning in total. So here are some riveting findings from the past researchers. So let's see, the first one is from Ivana in 2018 in her research entitled A Comparison of WTC between Austrian and Serbian students. So she found that the learners need to be personally invested in the topics discussed to communicate in English. This means that their WTC is mostly impacted by the topics discussed in the classroom. Meanwhile, Karen and Gaia in 2019 studied the effects of personality traits among Turkish ESL learners, where they have found extroverts are reportedly to be more open to L2 learning experience and convey higher WTC. Meanwhile, for Sinek and Akbar in 2021, in their research for gender influences on willingness to communicate among Turkish adult learners, they found that female learners are more willing to communicate in English despite having no difference in WTC subscales. As for Koya et al. In 2018, they conducted a study on 50 ESL and undergraduates in USM, where they found a strong relationship between learners' L2 proficiency with motivation, which positively impacts their WTC in English. So here is my research design. I've selected survey, which is quantitative research. Next. So here is my population and sample. My population is 97 teacher trainees from the SMP June 2018 intake, and my sample I've taken 77 teacher trainees from the same intake based on Tracy and Morgan in 1970, based on table for determining sample size from population as I've highlighted. Next. So the instrument that I've used in this study, the questionnaire is taken from Ivana in 2018. Like I've mentioned just now, I've adapted and modified the questionnaire to fit into the current context of the study. So my questionnaire has two sections. The first section, section A, inquiring about two items, gender and class. Meanwhile, for section B, we have 15 items, inquiring about motivational factors that makes the respondents willing to communicate in the classroom. In section B, we have Likert scale. The Likert scale used is as follows. 1 being strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. Right, next, here are my research procedure which I've conducted. So I've mentioned some of the research procedure. I will be explaining from obtaining permission letter. I've obtained permission letter
before I carry out the research. Then I got my supervisor's approval to determine whether I should carry on with the instrument or not. And only then I conducted the pilot test, which I received my alpha gamma coefficient value. After that, I proceed with data collection. Then once I gotten my data, I have proceed with processing and analyzing data. And the last stage, I've done the report writing for the research. Next, this is my data collection procedure. So I've mentioned that I modified the questionnaire, but importantly, I also modified it from a hard copy version to online questionnaire on Google Form. As you can see here, this is the access name. And I've also gotten the verification from my supervisor before I distribute to the respondents. And it had taken me 2 weeks to get the amount of respondents. Next. So this is my data analysis procedure. After I've gotten my data, I've transferred the raw data into SPSS software. Before I proceed with data analyzing, I check for the errors, missing items. Only then I will proceed with data analyzing based on my research questions. So for my RQ1, I've conducted descriptive analysis. So the data computed contribute to the mean score and also standard deviation. And I've also done analysis of mean based on mean score distribution, and I've provided ranking for each item based on from the highest mean score to the lowest mean score. And from that, I am able to find out the most dominant WTC in each factor. This is the table. Sorry, it's not clear. This is adapted from Moidany in 2009. And as for RQ2, I've conducted differential analysis. So in differential analysis, I've utilized independent samples t-test. So in t-test, I will compare the means of motivation between female and male IPG career eye teacher trainees, WTC in English in the classroom. So from t-test produce the score. So I am able to identify the difference between motivation, the difference in motivation between the two groups compared. Hence, as a researcher, I am also able to reject or fail to reject the hypothesis. Next, so this is my data findings. This is the overall mean, which is 4.22. Because mean is the average of data sets. So according to Moidany just now, 4.22 falls under a very high score. And because, according to Kim, because we use Likert scale is the degree of ability, therefore we can safely say that IPG KBRI as a teacher trainees are highly motivated to communicate in English in the classroom. As for RQ1, in order to answer RQ1, I've provided the table which include mean, ranking, and also standard deviation. I'm sorry you cannot see it, but the highest item B15 has the highest mean score, which is 4.64. This statement is my personality motivates me to communicate in English with the standard deviation 0.58. Okay, moving on to differential analysis. So right here, before we conducted the test, we need to find the motivation for female and male teacher trainees first. Female, we have 61 in numbers, which contribute to the mean score 4.3, and male, we have 16 in numbers, which contributed to 4.16. As you can see, both mean score falls under a very high score, and they only have slight difference, which is 0.07. And after that, we have to go and look at the t-test results. Before we review the t-test result, I have to assume equal variances because of the mean test p-value, which is 0.58. And then the t-score value is 0.34. So the t-score value 0.34 indicates that there is no significant difference between the two groups compared. This is according to Kim in 2015. Next. So for descriptive analysis, we have answered just now. So personality traits have always been considered as fundamental in understanding individuals. And this is true because learners' behavior are different and distinct based on their personality traits. So according to Lian and Kelsen, the students whose personality motivates them to communicate in class have higher verbal processing capacity and perform better in speaking class. As for inferential analysis, no conclusive evidence shows significant statistical difference. And Tardif and Sai in 2015 found the same result. This could be because of learning opportunities, whereby the learners are provided the same materials, learning facilities, and resources in the classroom, which is quite similar to what is happening in IBG right now, because we have the learning access, the same learning access in the classroom. So the conclusion, I am able to answer both research questions and achieve the objectives. And from the findings just now, enables the researcher to make a conclusion on the research hypothesis, which is the research is the study failed to reject the research hypothesis. Now, so for demography, it is great to add racial background to offer extensive details on WTC and L2 motivation for future studies, and also maybe conduct a case study in the future to investigate the motivation of teacher trainees who excel in communication activities in the classroom. Next, there are two implications towards language instructors and also TESOL teacher trainees. It enables the TESOL lecturers especially to gain better insight on factors that motivate learners to communicate, and also assist educators or lecturers to improve the lesson plan in the classroom. As for TESOL teacher trainees, this study allows them to improve their communication skills, and they can put in effort and can find the means to regulate their competitive performance. That's all from me today. Thank you for your time and attention.
This is on cases students willingness to communicate in the classroom.
Yes.
Why you are doing the research? You are to study motivational effect. Because motivational cases, teacher training inside the classroom.
Right. Thank you for the question. So, referring back to the problem statement, we have seen studies that show ESL learners, which is like teacher trainees in IPG, they have been experiencing problems in communicating in English in the classroom. As a researcher, I would like to figure out whether the same occurrence have been happening in IPG.
Has any past research about this thing? Has any past research? Can turn your PowerPoint to the past research.
Past research. So the past research for ESL learners, this one, and also all of them are actually ESL learners, but none of these past research, this one is ESL undergraduates.
Because I think my opinion as a training teacher, that is nothing because when motivation about you want to communicate inside your class, you must communicate one. Because you as a tester student, unless you are doing the research that example, BM students are willing to communicate English during the English class. That is something that can improve our research. Because the session is a compulsory one. Right, Miss Fatih put this in bahasa Melayu. Or you communicate in bahasa Melayu during your lesson classes.
I think maybe what I'm also trying to tell you is to find a study which says that there's a student they tend to speak in Bahasa Melayu during the classes, so that will bridge your gap of the study. So that's why that will strengthen your reason to conduct the study. So that one can be included in your statement of performance. So that's why you conduct the study. So because
So, like this one, so your maybe your supervisor is have a PhD on the, but I don't know how you discuss with her. But for me, this topic not really interesting because you study on thesis student, if you will study on BM, I think that accepted you in the English classes, like example, you study your P, ISMP, this one. Because the tester, you motivated or not motivated, you must speak English because you are English training teacher, right?
yes,
So this is my opinion. So the back to the IQ that's now. So you have a research hypothesis. So by the your IQ one no research hypothesis can fit.
Because
You must know what. Because research question and research hypothesis, when you are doing the research, quantitative research must come together. So you are correct. You have two research questions, but you have only one research hypothesis. Can you explain?
I cannot explain that, but I will review that.
So go back, try to discuss with your supervisor.
Alright.
Okay, how many times you meet your supervisor? Many times. She never mention anything.
Uh, I don't think so.
Because when you are doing your master like by research or PhD, so I know about PhD holder, but I know something this one. But this is important thing when you get your designated in future is the and then the evaluation panel want to pass or not. Here your testimony is important how to answer confidently. Right. Okay, next one. About the interior analysis.
Differential.
Next.
Oh,
Okay, this one. This motivation, gender, female and male. This is something people say is very smart research. But when you want to do this kind of research, make sure that you participate is enough. Because when the female is too high, male is too less, maybe have a effect your result finding. Because what I study, what I my understanding, we need at least minimum 30%, 30% participant for this one. So when only we can compare this according to maybe my you try to check back in for your future. Okay, this one because the male is very small one. Maybe if you want to make this one, you can make the test one. But maybe you can find the student from the rural the number who is come from the town. So you have 97 local classmates. So maybe you can take minimum 30%, 30 or 30, 40, 37 who come from town, who come from rural or suburban. It is more your test is more relevant because the get the number that too last different, too much different. Okay. Then when you present, like example you present here is okay when the next maybe you go for international presentation, national presentation, try to review now a bit your presentation about business data collection procedure everything. But maybe you can combine your research procedure, right? You describe, then you explain together how you get your data everything this one. Because this step, because I have attended several conference about this one, I never see people discussing how the research procedure, research relation, like this one. The most important, like the first one, your PowerPoint one, your research finding, sorry, result, discussions is important, and your conclusion. Conclusion also very important. Need to discuss actually. What do you find on this one? When from the past research like support this one. If your past research not supported your findings, then you need to explain why not support, why different. Because I see your when you come to the conclusion, it's a very simple one. Like you can go see this one. You say this one pengolahan pembentangan membuat kesimpulan yang baik berasas yang putih. But only one sentences. What is pengolahan yang baik berdasarkan putih? Right. So in future, so can be improving your presentation and how you make your audience understand your business. Thank you.
Right, so I think I will just add on to what Mr. Alfonso mentioned. If I were to go back to the hypothesis, for this one, this is two hypothesis, right? Alternative and null hypothesis. So this one. So the other one should be there is difference in motivation. So that will be alternative hypothesis. This is null hypothesis. So you just add one more. Okay, go to the conclusion part. Okay, so this one, you should actually state the finding of each research question. And then you're going to relate to the past study, how they are similar or different. And then that's why. You can just simply say that I answer all the questions like that. Okay, but you have to tell what are the findings. Okay, so go to previous slide. Okay, this one. Because it's too small to see. So the first, your research question number one say us what is the most dominant? So what is the most dominant factor affecting them to speak or we need to speak in personality? Okay, right. So that's my question. Okay, good job. You do
Okay, I'll just start my video. Okay, so good morning to the panel of experts and to my fellow friends, ladies and gentlemen. I am Shashni Sukumaran, and today I'll be presenting my survey research entitled Perceived Stress Among MBTI trainees during online learning and their potentialities. Alright, so looking at the background of the research, the sudden shift from physical to online classes during the COVID-19 pandemic has caused students to undergo a massive amount of stress globally. So you can see there are research evidence here showing that even in KSA, in Oman, the students were undergoing very high stress during online learning during the pandemic. So it can be seen that COVID-19 has caused online learning and it has affected everyone globally, right? So stress during online learning amidst the global pandemic is a serious issue. So it is necessary to do an in-depth study that involves teacher trainings from MTKDRI because I believe that students' mental health is at stake and needs to be prioritized. Okay, so for the problem statement, we have four. Number one, less emphasis is given to students' mental health during online learning. My statement is supported by Chandra 2021 that stated that students face stress because of due to many factors such as prolonged screen time, excessive workload, and more. Alright. Number 2, negative coping strategies. Okay, it can be seen here. Ikeolo and Karegi stated that 91.9% of the respondents were found to be coping on negative coping strategies such as smoking, consuming alcohol, eating beyond control, and many more when they are stressed. So which is why this research is important, because we need to figure out what kind of coping strategies are being used by IPGKDRI teacher trainings. Are they using the positive ones or are they using the negative ones? Alright. So number 3, insufficient research in Malaysia. It can be seen here that it stated there are many studies about perceived stress and coping strategies, but in Western countries, and there are only a few known studies done in Malaysia. Thus, I believe that this is an important gap for research. So number 4, there are high chances for online learning to be resumed again. Why? Because according to Callaway 2020, the COVID-19 virus is constantly mutating and further mutations should be anticipated in the upcoming years. So we are currently living in an endemic. The virus has not ended yet. So we do not know when the restrictions will be resumed again, and online learning might just, pop up again. So this is why this research is important. Right? So next. So the purpose of my research is exactly the same as my objective of the research. So let's look at my objectives. Next. Okay, so number 1, to determine the perceived stress level among IPGKDRI teacher trainees during online learning. Number 2, to identify the most dominant coping style used by IPGKDRI teacher trainees to overcome stress during online learning. So for the coping strategies, there are 14, okay, but 14 coping strategies are categorized into three main coping styles. Number 1, problem-focused coping, which is the positive coping style. Number 2, emotion-focused coping. Emotion-focused coping is in the middle. It has positive coping strategy and also has a negative coping strategy. Number 3, avoidant coping, which is utterly negative, right? So number 3, to investigate whether there is a significant difference in the perceived stress level among the TESOL and the BM teacher trainees during online learning. So let's look at our research questions. It's just the same as my research objectives. This is in the form of questions. So let's look at my significance of research. Okay. So before this, we've always heard, okay, online learning is stressful, but where is the evidence? Okay, so this research is here to provide you with evidence-based data on stress prevalence and coping mechanism to educate the general public. So this study will be beneficial to all students, especially to IPGKDRI teacher trainees, when the state of their mental health will be taken into consideration, okay? So that we would know, okay, online learning is really stressful, and we would think about suitable interventions, okay, to fight this issue. Yes, okay. So number 2, this research deciphers whether the teachers' coping strategies are positive or negative. Okay, regardless of what the findings are later, which I'm going to present to you, it will foster a better understanding. No matter if the teacher trainees' coping strategies are positive or negative, it will foster a better understanding of the situation, and we can provide suitable, better intervention based on the situation. Alright, next. So, for the past research, it can be seen here. Kawin, Hassan, and Mitra 2021 stated that physical classes to online learning caused by the COVID-19 catastrophe was a shock to most of the students, Bangladeshi students, because it was a new thing that was suddenly introduced in their life. And Wang Liu, Zhang Jie, and Yang also stated that many of their medical students were affected by online learning. So this is a proof that stress during online learning is a pivotal issue, and this gives me some strong ground to proceed with this research. And number 2, it can be seen that based on the past research, the difference between the coping strategies, the difference between the findings are somewhat commensurate, because there are positive coping strategies and there are negative coping strategies that were found. Okay, like Hua and Sylvie here stated that most of the students were coping on negative coping strategies such as substance, by relying on tobacco, alcohol, and stuff. But here, they have good coping strategies, but their stress are relatively very high, which shows that online learning is really has caused so much stress. Alright, so next. So for my research design, mine is a survey research with a cross-sectional design using a quantitative approach. Next. Okay, so for my population example, my total population is 250 teacher trainees. Our whole batch of BSMB June 2018 intake with 3 different options. TESOL 98, BM 77, and 540. So from here, based on the Crashey and Morgan table, 1970, I derived 140 respondents by using the stratified sampling method. Why stratified sampling method? Because you can see that for each subpopulations they are not stable. They have different numbers. So I have to choose the least population sampling, 50 from SL, 50 from VM, and 40 from BI. And then later I proceeded with the simple random sampling using the research randomizer to pick up my respondents in in a random way so that there will be no bias in this research. Okay, next. Okay, so mine is my instrument is questionnaire administered via Google Form, starts with a brief introduction and requires respondents' consent to avoid any ethical issues. And it contains three main sections. Number one, demographic information, where I take into account their intake and their unit. Number two, perceived stress scale PSS-10 by Cohen, Kalmar, and Mammelstein 1983, which is a universal perceived stress tool to measure their stress level. And section C, brief Cope scale, Howard 1997, to measure their coping strategies. Right? And there are 40 items in total. Next. Alright, for the research procedures, I did the content validity by getting the judgment of experts, by getting the supervisor and other panel of experts to check my instrument. Later proceeded with the pilot test with 30 random respondents, and then went to my reliability test using the statistical package for social sciences, SPSS, and my convex alpha was 0.75. So it was okay to go with. And then I made some minor modification in terms of choice of words and use simpler language so that my respondents would really understand what they are answering in my questionnaire to make sure that my research went smoothly. And then for my data collection procedures, name list was collected to make sure that everyone answered the research. It was assigned by giving it to the class monitor, and then the official RPGM address was selected because for authenticity purposes and to avoid the same person answering my survey many times. And it was all done under the time frame of 2 weeks. Okay. Next, for the data analysis procedures, to answer research question 1 and 2, I have to use the descriptive analysis. Meanwhile, for the differential analysis, it's for question 3 because and it was done using the t-test. So for the descriptive analysis, I have to make sure, I have to read my central tendency, but you have to know, right, which one you have to choose, mean, mode, or median. So I did my normality test, and my data was normal because the students of n to process was between the range of negative 1.96 to positive 1.96. So I proceeded with the mean. Right, so next. Okay, so for the data findings, what is the perceived stress level among MCKDI teacher trainees during online learning? Ladies and gentlemen, 7.1 low stress, 37.1 of our teacher trainees have moderate stress, and the rest of them, 55.6% of them have high perceived stress, which you can clearly see that the mean is 27.61, which is clearly under the in between the range of high perceived stress. So we are all under high perceived stress, the majority of us. Next. Okay, so what is the most dominant coping style used by IPC KDRI teacher trainees to overcome stress during online learning? So it can be clearly seen here that number one, the most dominant coping style is problem focused coping. The positive one, fortunately, with the highest mean of 3.35, followed by emotion focused coping 3.02 and avoidance coping 2.28. Alright? This is just for an extra information. The most preferred coping strategy under all this coping style is religion. 3.66 with the most highest mean and the most least preferred coping strategies often used, the most least mean, 1.22. Okay, next. Okay, is there a significant difference in the perceived stress level between the TESOL and the VM teacher trainees during online learning? Okay, so I conducted the t-test and the p-value was 0.90. So when the p-value is more than 0.05, it is deemed as non-significant. Thus, there is no significant difference between the TESOL in the perceived stress level between the TESOL and the VM teacher trainees. That's the alternative hypothesis is rejected and the null hypothesis is accepted. Next. So for the conclusion, we can all see that the majority of our teacher trainees have high perceived stress. Thus, it can be seen that online learning has heavily affected the teacher trainees' mental health, just like supported by the past research just now. So we have, unfortunately, we have positive coping style, but the stress level is still high, so we have to do something about this. And just because the positive coping style is the most dominant one doesn't mean the negative coping strategies are not used. They are still used. It's just that they have been outnumbered by positive 1. Alright? And there is no significant difference in the t-test. This means that stress is the congenital piece of life. No matter if you're in DM, no matter if you're in TESTL, stress is stress. And stress during online learning is the same for everyone. Okay? The difference in educational fields does not influence it. Next. Okay, recommendation and suggestion. Further studies should cover a broader spectrum. Due to time constraint, I was only able to study my batch. So I recommend that they should study further by studying the population, maybe to study our whole IPG KDRI or other IPG from all over Malaysia, so that it would have higher credibility to prove our point. And also number 2, focus on the factors of stress, because I only studied the perceived stress level and the coping strategies. So next time it would be better if they could start to focus on factors of stress, so it will foster a better understanding of the situation, because we know what is the factor of the stress, and it will help to create suitable intervention and appropriate intervention. Finally, for the implications. This research is a great representation of all our mental health, and it serves as a benchmark that proves that students' mental health were at stake during online learning. Number 2, it is one of the earliest studies about stress during online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, just like the part was supported by this past research just now. Number 3, when we already know our stress level is very high, okay, then this will push the higher authorities to give us suitable interventions, and new approaches will be implemented towards the betterment of this issue. Alright, and this will also encourage the higher authorities to amend the pedagogy of online learning to a more lenient but effective approach. Lenient doesn't mean ineffective. Like we know during online learning, everything you need proof for everything. You need proof for tutorials, you need proof for meeting. But in traditional way, the normal face-to-face, you do not need to do that, because I think we can all agree that face-to-face is less stressful than online learning, because for online learning you have to prove everything that you do. So they have to amend the pedagogy to a more lenient but effective approach. Last but not least, it uplifts the idea of providing mental health services on campus, such as teletherapy, counseling, online therapy. I, as a student who underwent online learning, I know how much all this would have helped me if the teletherapy and stuff like that were provided to me. So I think all of this should be considered. So it was fast. This is all from me. Thank you for your time and for listening.
Actually, when you are doing the quantity, okay, you can see that your listen for the day. So you can actually listen for the day and 3 listen. So these things are most important. When you find the past related past businesses, the past businesses, so you need to find out this past businesses is related to your business. So the first one is stress among IPG teacher training during online classes. So you need to find any past business about the stress level. So you need to stick inside your business. So second part is dominant coping side. How to part business. Maybe something is not really teacher training. Maybe can army can be on nurse business like stress level or dominant coping style on the nurse study or the army study. So you can
Okay, for the past research.
your past business one, because I can see that when you are discuss your past business is considered very limited.
Actually, there are many students that have put in my thesis that because of time
Very
constraint.
limited. So it is not cannot to support your research. You must understand that. Then also when you are doing the significant different test, level test and the end also you need to find out the past business. This is important. Then you also didn't state that your research hypothesis your friend does not have. Your patient has no hypothesis.
So, may I answer that question? It's because for this presentation, they didn't require us to put our hypothesis.
Why must it not required? Every research must be had for hypothesis.
The question didn't.
I never said that any research no hypothesis. How your argument?
first question is okay, so, because in the rubrics we didn't have the part for the hypothesis. That is why I didn't put. But in my thesis,
But that is one the must be there. When you have a result objective, must be there. Remember. Then, as I told your friend, is more more to explanation on discussion and conclusion. Because I can see that your conclusion is very simple. That I say that past research to support your conclusion. So you say that the student online learning can really impact the teacher training mental health. Any past research to support this thing. So you need to sit here. Who like Amungsu 2022 has study this one how that my study also sama. Kalau tak sama, explain kenapa tak sama. It's important. So, hope what is my comment that people maybe you want to study in future like this one, you want to make presentation because this thing need to take aspect. Like example, you want to present your finding this one to the next maybe everything to try to take your PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you, Shani, for the bullet point presentation. Okay, I have anything? Okay, right, I have questions. So can you go to your population summary? Okay, right, there you go. So here you have decimal PM and 5 students. So the total number is 250. So you use how do you determine your sample size? So you use credit mortgage.
yes,
Okay, right, so it's suggested 100.
yes.
Okay, right, so go to research question number 3. Why do you only have PESA and BM?
Okay. So, okay. Go back to the summary, please. Okay, why only test BM and not pi? Okay, this is because you can clearly see that the number is they are being outnumbered. So and then for the disproportionate sampling, you can still get 50 from Excel and 50 from BM, but pi is too little to be compared. So they are this is to avoid imbalance in the result. Which why I was advised to only take the Excel. Was advised yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes, it does.
Yes,
The answer. Okay. The answer for research question, okay, this is just an extra information. So that to exactly answer this question, the perceived stress level among IPG teacher trainees is low stress for 7.1% of them, moderate stress for 57.1% of them, and perceived stress for 55.8%. That is the answer.
my question is not yet done yet. Okay. Because I noticed that there is 37.61. So I was just wondering that how did you find the 37.61? It doesn't seem to be a limited scale. It doesn't seem to be the 5-minute scale. So what do you use for this one?
Oh, okay. Yes, it is a liquid scale, but there is a unique way to count the PSS scale where you have to sum up. They have 10 questions, right? You have to sum up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you will come up with the total. And then using that total, you can find out maybe one individual, maybe Sarah, for example, her total score is 50, so her stress is medium stress. It's like that. So I did it for everyone, and then it came out with an average. So the average was high perceived stress.
The 40 is the highest level of the stress.
Yes.
I see. So, what did you refer that one?
Cohen Kamart and Malstein, they are it's a universal tool to measure the perceived stress.
you mentioned that there is negative coping strategy used. Do you know what was that?
But okay, can you please go back to the next slide? There are many there are 14 coping strategies, right? So there are many like substance use, smoking and stuff like that. But I just list out the most frequent and least frequent. So one of the example here is substance use, but it has the lowest mean. So, but there are still people who do it. It's just in a little way. So then, which is why I said that just because it's little doesn't mean that we are not doing it.
You mentioned this whole thing. This is not a question, but this is my opinion. So if you want to do your presentation later on for your master meeting, you're not going to prep everything, especially for the literature review. As in like you're so routine, because when it's really people send the literature review, you will just like go to read, and then when you read, it just stops. If you just the few points, what is it, and then you explain it, but the thing is we can listen. It's not that we can listen. We don't want. We cannot listen because we actually want to read at the same time. Because we want to tell where is that person that should be reading on. Okay, so you want to reduce the number of words. Okay, or is that you good job?
Thank you.
Now please welcome the next presenter, Shafika Ashra Farina, from SL5 to present the presentation.
My name is Shafika Amina from I am the undergraduate student of the Department of Okay, so for title of research is factors contributing to the rise of interest in reading text preference among youth populations. Moving on to the background of this study. Okay, as we know, in English language there are four primary language skills, which are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So for my research, I want to focus on the reading skill, which is one of the language skills in the English language. Okay. Apart from the four language skills, we also have language art. Okay, language art is very versatile as it can integrate any skill in any language skill in the language art. Therefore, there are a lot of teaching materials that can be used in language art, such as literary text. Therefore, language art can support the development of reading skills. So, thus it is important to cultivating the reading text as a habit among students in order to improve their command of the language usage, especially for the year 4 pupils. Right? So, the statement problem, okay, for my problem statement is because according to Miranda, there is a drastic decline in interest in reading literary text among pupils. This is because literary texts are usually seen as a complex by people from both primary and secondary school. In fact, the recent research by Hadid and Shah stated that the implementation of CEFR make it more harder for people as it has a foreign cultural element. Thus, it garnered the spotlight of various authorities such as MOE, Ministry of Education, and also the teachers. Therefore, teachers and parents need to know they are have a crucial role to play in motivating people to be interested in reading, especially for literary text. Okay, so for my research objective, the first one is to identify the dominant factor contributing to the lack of interest in reading literary text among youthful people. The second one is to find out the least preferred literary text reading among youthful people. And the third one is to identify the differences in literary text reading preference between males and females among youthful pupils. For my research questions, the first one is what is the dominant factor contributing to the lack of interest in reading literary text among youthful pupils? The second one is what is the least preferred literary text reading among youthful pupils? And the third one is there any difference in literary text reading preference between males and females among youthful pupils? Okay, for the research certificate, it is important to discover factors contributing to the lack of interest because it will help the teacher to find out various strategies to boost people's interest in reading different literary texts. For my research, I focus on 3 types of literary texts, which are novels, short stories, and also poems. Okay, moving on to the related past research. I already used Hussein and Munshi 2011 as a reference. The title was a factor influencing to the lack of enthusiasm in reading literary text among students. So, based on the study, it came out with 3 findings, which is the dominant was content and language, lack of guidance, and personal interest. And the second one is Elena 2016. This is the most familiar research to me as it discusses the pedagogical benefit and potential drawbacks of literary text. The only difference is the respondent. Because Elena target respondent was on the ESL students, but mine was for the primary school students. Regardless, they also discovered the literary text reading preference, which is the same option, which are novels, short story, and poems. Next, I also refer to the local and recent one by Zana Abide and Lokin Wan 2020 because it implements the CFR current syllabus. It is implemented on the youthful people, but the thing is it's only focused on poetry. Okay, for the research design, I employ quantitative approach as a survey. The data is collected through survey and questionnaire will be distributed to the pupils. Okay, and that's for the population and sample. The respondent is year for pupils of this case and so the population is 130 and the sample is 97. All the population and sample will refer to the sample size diminution table by Prexy and Morgan. So the sample 97 consists of 47 males and 50 females. Okay, for the instrument of questionnaire, there are a total of 18 items consisting of section A and section B. The first section were adapted from Elena, the past research now, and the section B from Hussein and Munshi. Okay, for the data collection procedure, the first one is I submitted a set of questionnaires to be reviewed by my supervisor, and then after I get the approval from my supervisor, since my target responding is from youthful people, I want to add on the Malay translation in order for them to understand the questions better and they can answer it easily. And then the translation will verify from expert, which is I seek help from the head of Malay language committee of Institutena, Madam Azhar, and then I conduct a pilot study. Okay, after I receive all the students' response, I run for reliability test, and my formal alpha was 0.87, and it is considered as reliable. Next, I conduct the actual research through Google Form, and then I transfer the collected data to SPSS. Okay, for my data analysis procedure, in order to answer research question 1 and 2, I use descriptive analysis. And in order to answer research question 3, I employ the t-test method to find out the difference between males and females among youthful pupils. Next, moving on to the data findings and discussion. For my RQ1, the finding was the dominant factor contributing to the lack of interest in reading literary text is the environment factor. As you can see, the environment factor, the mean was 3.32, which is according to the mean score interpretation table by Malini 2009. It is considered as high. So I made a table and ranking accordingly to the highest, from the highest to the lowest. Okay, talk about environment factor. It is a pertaining role to the thesis and parents. Okay, for the research question 2, okay, this is the finding. But as you can see, the novel is the least preferred literary text among year 4 pupils, and the highest was short story. But since my RQ2 was to find the least preferred, so I will focus on novels. This is because it is found out that most year 4 pupils of SK Standard refuse to read lengthy text material as it take a lot of time to comprehend the text. That they have a negative mindset that novel consists of heavy plot and numerous characters, especially the CAFR syllabus. For my RQ2, there is no difference in the literary text reading preference between males and females. These are used to test method, and the statistical value P obtained was 0.71. According to PRIP 2015, if the P value greater than 0.05, it is no significant. So the null hypothesis is accepted. So as for the conclusion, it is essential to find out factors contributing to the lack of interest in reading literary text among year 4 pupils in order for teachers to know their strategies, to know their best task or teaching material to boost people's interest and motivation. So for the recommendation and suggestion, I focus on 3 parties, which are MOE, English teachers, and future teachers. Firstly, for MOE, it is good to reselecting a set of literary texts that basically made up of local content. This will help the students to understand and be familiar with the content better. Next, it is important to prioritize Malaysian primary school language wise. Then it is available for MOE to provide teaching materials for teachers catering to the ranges of proficiency. Such as MOE could provide a module that contains of colorful graphics or colorful illustration. For the English teachers, they need to identify people's need and proficiency, especially for in the literature skills. Next, English teachers also need to be well equipped with CFR knowledge and best learning strategies in order to make the pupils feel enjoy learning literature in class. Next, that's what the teachers need to encourage people and promote fun activities. For the future researchers, I suggest that they conduct a qualitative approach and they can discover various factors. Because for my approach is quantitative, I only focus on 3 factors, which is the method and language, environment factor, and also motivation factor. Next, the next recommendation was to carry out the same study to different target respondents, such as year 5. Through this, they will gain maybe a different insight, and also they can gain maybe a positive outcome. Lastly, for the implication, for year 4 pupils of SK Standard, okay, through this study, they will be aware that teachers play an important role that will influence their interest in reading literary text. So it is hoped that people will be able to voice out their opinions about the activities conducted, whether they prefer it to do it in individual task or a group work. And then for English teachers of SK Standard, through this study, they will know that they need to implementing various teaching strategy in order to enhance people's interest in reading literary text. I think that is all from me. Thank you.
Get your PowerPoint to discussion. And discussion. The first part actually, I can see able to actually my comment is something like something same like your friend. Exactly, like Nuru, something same thing one. Is when you are doing the quantitative research, your past research is very important. Must be related to your research question. And one now I want to see that your recommendation so that you wait, no, it's not. When you are to see that is you are want to find what is the factor that is like something factor that is not other stuff. Memberi satu yang bagus, waktu yang bagus lah. Maksudnya ini Raja kurang berminat untuk membaca. Kenapa? Sebab environment factor. What is the teacher? What is the parent? Is not factor that encourage to improve. So when we go back to your studies, you must like you are talking about the teacher, but you also must talking about the parent. What the parent should do, how to improve this thing. Because you say that environment factor, you are still teacher, parent, but actually environment factor is very last one, a lot of things. But because you understand this kind of thing, so your studies must be about how the teacher can improve reading, what the teacher should do. And the parent also have a responsible. Okay. Actually, you want to give us improve studies a lot that something cakap pula. Okay, finally, continue.
Okay, right. Thank you, Pak Amira, for your presentation. I like the slide because it's not working. So I just have one question here. Can you go to the, okay, I'm not pretty sure which part was that, but I was just wondering about your pilot study. Your pilot study. So how did you actually your pilot study sampling? And then are your samples? And yeah, that was the question that answered this.
For the pilot study, I run for the 20 students, and I refer to the presentation. It stated that 15 to 30 is still reliable for the pilot study. Then I run for the test using Coca Alpha to find out, and then I proceed with the actual research. I using population and simple random sampling.
So who are the students?
Oh, this is from my class.
I mean, like, are they the same one from your actual research?
No, it's a different one. Since I have a large population.
Okay. Because can you go back? Can you go to the population? Okay. So, right. So you have 150. So 97 is a sample for your actual study, and you take another 50 for your pilot test. Okay, right. So are they the 30 are from this 130 or different?
I'm
The same one. So you didn't answer they are not included for the 97. Okay, right. Okay. So that's it. Thank you very much. Now please welcome our last presenter,
Assalamualaikum and good morning. I greet to all listeners and my fellow friends. So my name is Untitled from Turkey, and I'm going to present my research entitled Study on Factors for Inward among present students due to the teach and life. So I'm running this review of this. So first is the background of the study. So tertiary students enrolled in IPG must take UN as a requirement to pass their studies. So, in Teacher Institute or in IPG, the Ministry of Education has issued a directive for the tertiary teacher trainees to obtain a minimum of band 5 and above. So, in order to get a band 5 and above, tertiary teacher trainees have to get a high score in every speaking in every test in WET, which are the speaking test, the listening test, the reading test, and the writing test. So TESOL students, they are expected to get a very high score in the test because TESOL students, they communicate in their daily life, especially during the lecture session and when they communicate with their friends in the class. So for the problem statement, according to Loma, assessing the speaking proficiency of language learners is a difficult task. This is because when we are going to assess the students' proficiency, English proficiency level, uh, to assess that it is very difficult because the English proficiency level cannot be measured only through the speaking test. Okay, so the English proficiency level can be different according on how the test or how the speaking test was conducted. So the results may be different according to how the speaking test was conducted during that time. So next is according to El Hadi 2015, the psychological factors are the main causes of high school and tertiary level students' reluctance to speak English. So there are many psychological factors that contribute to the reluctance of to speak English among the students, which are the nervous, they are feel nervous, they are being shy, and also they are afraid of making mistakes. So all these psychological factors will result into the students' reluctance to speak in English. And the last problem segment is by Gaibani. So students have a high level of anxiety and low self-confidence to speak in English language. So for the tertiary students, usually we are very confident in speaking English with our friends and also with the lecturers. We have a very good proficiency level and we have a very good communication skill. But when it comes to tests, when it comes to evaluation, we cannot perform effectively like we always do. This is because the high level of anxiety within ourselves. So this also applied in the mind. When we came to test, when they conducted the speaking test, we feel very nervous and the level of anxiety rise, and that's why we are able to perform effectively like we always do. Next is the purpose of the study. So the purpose of the study is to analyze the factors affecting the speaking score in among test students and identify which factors are the most chosen by the students. Okay, next is the research objective. So the first research objective is to identify the factor that contributed the most to the speaking skill score in among test students June 2018 in IPI. The second objective is to find out the significant difference of internal factors affecting speaking skill score in between male and female students among test students June 2018 in IPI. And the last objective is to find out the significant difference of external factors affecting speaking score and between male and female students among the students June 2018 in IPI. Okay, next is the research questions. So the research question, the first one is to what is the main factor that affects the speaking skill score in among test students June 2018 in IPI? The second research question is to is there any difference in internal factors affecting the speaking skill scores in between male and female research students in 2018 activity in a behavioral life. And the last research question is there any difference in external factors affecting speaking skill score in WEC between male and female research students June 2018 intake in academia? So the significance of the research is to provide an information about the factors that affect the speaking skill score in WEC. And also, the significance of research is for the tester students to realize their weakness during the speaking test and find solution to overcome it. So individual when they are going to take the test again, the WEC test again, they will know what the weakness within themselves and they try to overcome it to get a high score in the speaking test. So the related past researchers, there are three past researchers. The first one is by Roshani Kavatika 2021. So she said that the pressure to perform well is the main factor that affects the students' speaking performance. So this is closely related to my research because the pressure to perform well is under the category of internal factors which are included in my research. And the next researcher is by Yayu Madina Mandu 2019. He said that internal factors as a main reason why the students are unable to perform the speaking English. So in her research, she also stated the same thing as mine research, which is there are external factors and internal factors that affect the speaking skill performance. So for her, in her findings, at the end of her finding, she found out that the internal factors are as a main reason why the students are unable to speak in English. And the last one is by Nurul Najwa Barum 2021. Speaking is not a good indicator for academic achievement due to differences in performing the task. So this is because when conducting a speaking test, they have to talk about a specific topic within the time given. So this is not a good indicator to measure the proficiency level of the test taker. Next is the research design. So the research design that I use for my research is quantitative, which is which is by giving the survey, and based on the data that I have collected from the survey, I will analyze it in a descriptive and differential analysis. Next is the population and sample. So for the population, I choose TESOL students PISMP June 2018 intake consists of 97 students, and for the sample, it is the same but only consists of 87 students. This is because I refer to the sample size determination table by Taxi and Morgan, and out of 87 students from PISMP June 2000 intake, there are 20 male students and also 67 female students. Next is the instruments that I use for data collection. So I use questionnaire, which is the Likert scale. So for the Likert scale, the respondent have to choose the scale on 1 until 5, which is the 1 indicates that it is strongly disagree, and the 5 indicates that it is strongly agree. So in my questionnaire, it consists of two sections, which are section A and section B. So for section A, it is the internal factor, which consists of 8 items, and for section B, it is external factor, which consists of 8 items also. So to check the validity of my instrument, I adapt my questionnaire from a questionnaire that have been done by the previous researchers, and to check the reliability of my instrument or my questionnaire, I have conducted a pilot study. Okay, next is the data collection procedure. So for the process of the data collection, I start with the first step, which is to preparing the items for the survey. So to prepare the items for the survey, I have adapted from the previous survey that have been conducted by the previous researchers. So based on the survey that they have conducted, I adapt it and create my own questionnaire, my own survey. So after I have create my questionnaire, I will consult it with my supervisor, which is Mr. Chan, and after he have approved my questionnaire or my survey, I can go to the next stage, which is to identify the population and the sample. So the population and the sample for my research is the TESOL students. And after I have identified the population and the sample, I may proceed with the next step, which is to conduct a pilot study. So the importance in conducting a pilot study is to check the reliability of my instrument. So to know the reliability of my instrument, I check the value of the formation alpha. So if it is below 0.75, I have to restart it from the first step. But if they exceed the value of 0.75, then I can continue to the last step. So for my research, I got the value of formation alpha is 0.90, which is very high. So I will proceed to the last step, which is to distribute the questionnaire to the sample of my research. Next is data analysis procedure. So I'm using the SPSS version 26.0, and then there are two analyses that I have been conducted, which is descriptive analysis and differential analysis. So to answer the first research question, I'm using a descriptive analysis, and to answer the second and third question, I'm using a differential analysis. So the mean score for both internal and external factors, I'm going to interpret the mean scores by using the mean score interpretation scale by Moynihan 2009. And for the differential analysis, I'm using the independent sample defects. Okay, next, this is the mean interpretation scale that I use, which is from Moynihan 2009. So to answer the first research question, uh, the main factor affecting speaking skill scores in web among tester students June 2018 is the internal factor. This can be seen from the table, which is the internal factor is in a high level and the external factor is in medium level. So to answer the first research question, I have concluded that the main factor affecting speaking skill scores in web is the internal factor. Okay, next is to answer the second research question. There is no significant difference in the factors affecting the speaking skill scores in web among sexual students presently in 2018 based on gender, with the p-value is 0.88. So if you see the table here, the p-value which is 0.88, it is exceed the value of 0.05. So if the value exceeds the value of 0.05, it indicates that there is no significant difference. Next is to answer the third research question. There is a significant difference in external factors affecting the speaking skill scores from web among tester students for SAP June 2018 based on gender with the p-value 0.02. So if you can see, the p-value is below 0.05. So it indicates that there is a significant difference in external factors. So for the discussion, for the first research questions, five out of 8 items in internal factors show a higher score. So this resulting to the internal factors is the most contributing factor in affecting the speaking skill score. And it is supported by PARC and E. Students feeling of stress, anxiety, or nervousness may impede their language learning and performance abilities. Next is for the second research question. There is no significant difference in internal factors because the mean scores for both genders didn't have a huge gap. The male is 3.29 while the female is only 3.32. So for the third research question, there is a significant difference in external factors affecting the speaking scores in web because the mean scores for both genders have a huge gap, which is male mean score is 3.34 while female mean score is 2.76. So the huge gap resulting to the significant difference in external factors. Next is the conclusion. So I have concluded the first, second, and third research question is on the previous finding. Next is so for the recommendation for the MUET candidates that are going to take the MUET test. The recommendation is they have to have a good preparation and set a clear objective. If they wanted to get a band 5, they have to get a high score in every test. They need to get a very high score in the speaking test, and they need to be really prepared for the test that they are going to take. And also they need to came out with solutions to overcome any possibilities that they might face during the speaking test. So when they are going to take the speaking test, there are many challenges or many factors that they are going to face. So they need to find the solutions before going for the test. Next is the recommendation for the future researchers. So for the future researchers, the recommendation for them is to explore a bigger population example. For example, they may choose population from another campus, another IPG, other than KDRI, also may choose from another intake. And also for the future researchers, they can conduct a study about factors that affect the score for every test segment. For me, I only conduct the factors that affect the speaking test, but for the future researchers, they may conduct factors that affect the writing skill, the reading skill, or the listening skill. And next is the implication for the tester teacher trainees. They can view the result of the study as an improvement for themselves, and for the teachers or lecturers, they can try several methods to help the students overcome the factors that affect their speaking performance. For example, they can conduct a mic workshop or anything else. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Actually, my comment is not related to your friend. About like you want to do test, you don't have enough respondents. So not really that's really get email very high because the mail are not actually the minimum of the you go through the like the professor so you try to make the minimum one according to my understanding. Maybe I am missing, but minimum must be at least 30 respondent. If you don't want normal one, so want to compare, male must be at least 30, female must be at least 30. So only your data can be validated. So another thing is when you are discussing about the internal and external factor, so you need to let us know also what is the internal factor that have a 8 factor. So I didn't go through what is the internal and also external also what is the external factor actually. So need to explain this one. So this is more important like your more concentrate on your discussion and your conclusion for the next your presentation. Maybe you want to present it somewhere else. So this is only from my okay. And also when you do your PowerPoint, your hypothesis is also important.
Okay, thank you, Aisha, for the presentation. So have you set for your question?
Yes.
And what was it?
I usually when
What is the highest score for each? I mean, like, for skills, which one is the highest?
I got the highest in the listening test,
Alright.
and I got the lowest on the detail in the writing test.
I think it's not that you can write, but you can do the skill. There is a way to score that. I don't think. Okay, right. Don't worry, keep do it. So if you because you said you have two questions maybe for the task question 23, you should have hypothesis for that one, but because it's like Mr. Amos who say that you should consider about the number of your sample there. Let's assume that you have balanced number. How would you create the hypothesis for both? Yeah, let's create the hypothesis for both. This is one. This is question one. Can you put the resist question two, please? You might want not to use read by read. Okay, is there any difference in physical factors and acting space? This is school in what between male and female cases students in 2018 and this fabric. So could you create a null hypothesis for this one and alternative hypothesis for this question?
So for the OTC, basically I have read it in my research, which is there is no difference in the factors affecting volume, right? Between male and female so for the second research question, the hypothesis is accepted, but for the third research question, the hypothesis is rejected.
Alright, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
At the end of the presentation and the other presentation this morning will come back. Thank you to the panel of assistants.
Okay, thank you for your presentation.
Congratulations,
Okay,
people.
everybody pass one.
Don't worry lah, this is
So,
not an issue.
another thing, okay, maybe you can study after finish this one, to sign to study for master. Waiting for you to coming back to serve in this Typical of lecturer lah. Di GDD. Also, very high teaching. So, yeah, so one day, some of you coming back to this year. You can go to university also as a lecturer. So, try maybe you can jump directly if you score first class degree here. You can jump directly to PhD. If you know, you go for the master first, maybe take 1 or 2 years, then the future for PhD. So kind of maybe if you go to university, maybe your prospect to become a professor one day or the activity maybe for